7-star Iron Bundle Tera raids are coming to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and in today's video, I'm going to show you the Pokemon you should bring with you to make sure that you can beat it every single time. We have a bunch to talk about, so let's get started. How's it going, everybody? Blaine here for Bridge4 Games. Welcome back to the channel. We are talking about the Iron Bundle 7-star raids. They're going to start showing up in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet this Friday, the 22nd, at midnight UTC. Now, for us in the western part of the world, I live in the US, that does mean we're actually going to be getting it on Thursday evening, the 21st. For me, that generally means about 8 o'clock p.m. I'm Eastern time, so you can probably figure out from there where it's going to show up for you. But if you do live in the rest of the world, it may be on Friday itself. And again, the Pokemon is going to be that Iron Bundle, which is a little underwhelming because it's a Pokemon that's very easy to get. But, you know, everybody does love having it with the Mightiest Mark, which is great. And it is a really good opportunity if you do have Scarlet to get it without having to trade or something like that. Plus, it falls in with the whole holiday theme, so I get it. Now, that being said, as we take a look at the Iron Bundle itself, there are some really key things to note. First of all, it is incredibly fragile. It has very low HP compared to other Pokemon. I mean, it's still going to have a lot because it's a raid. But it also has low defense and low special defense. So, it is a Pokemon that is very frail. But the problem is it makes up for that by being very, very fast and very, very strong. It has 124 special attack paired with a 136 speed. This means that a lot of your Pokemon are going to get outsped by it, and if you do have a weakness to it, it is going to be able to do a lot of damage to you. Now, normally it is a water and ice type Pokemon, but for this raid, it's going to have the ice Tera type. Now, something important to keep in mind, even though it does have the ice Tera type, and that's what we're going to be fighting against, it still does have stab water on some very powerful moves. Now, it does have for its move selection things like Hydro Pump, has Chilling Water, which can reduce attack stats. It also has moves like Blizzard, Ice Beam, all that stuff. And while the majority of its moves are going to be water and ice, it does have access to a couple things I want you to just keep in mind. Now, a lot of people are thinking about bringing like fighting type Pokemon. It does have access to Acrobatics and Play Rough, so you may want to be kind of careful there. It has a very not great physical attack stat, but if you are kind of a frail attacker, that could actually do quite a bit of damage to you. Now, aside from its attacks, it doesn't have too many setup moves, but it does have Aurora Veil, and I think it's very likely to actually use that because that does help with some of its poor defenses. And it also has access to electric terrain, which will trigger its ability. Now, based solely on its base stats, that does probably mean when it gets the boost from its Quark Drive, it probably will get a boost to its speed, becoming faster. But there is a good chance that they may throw some EVs on it just for the raid, and it could pick up a special attack boost instead. If that is the case, it is going to be very, very devastatingly strong, so we need to make sure we have the right Pokemon to deal with it. Now, with that in mind, here's some things that I'm looking for to take down this raid. I'd like an attack that's super effective against ice, and ideally have an ice resistance as well. I do not want anything that is weak to water. So, I've seen a lot of people recommending rock and fire type Pokemon to take this thing down, and just like, what? Again, even though this thing is ice Tera type, it still has a very, very powerful set of water attacks, so we don't really want to bring anything that's going to make it easier to take us out. And last but not least, we also need something with decent special defense or decent HP, either way, just because this Pokemon does have a bit of a higher offensive stat than we're kind of used to with these raids, Mewtwo notwithstanding. But we do need to be careful because it could sweep us pretty easily, so that's just kind of a rough outline of what's going to be a good choice to bring. Now, with all that in mind, let's take a look at the actual Pokemon I think you should bring with you. Now, one of the best options for this raid is going to be Zamazenta. Now, normally it is a fighting type Pokemon, and we already talked about why that could be an issue, but when you give it the Rusted Shield in battle, it will become its crown form, which is going to be Steel and Fighting. Steel does resist Ice, which is going to be awesome for us, but in addition to that, Crown Zamazenta has base 150 for both of its defensive stats. That's really good. Now, to take advantage of those good stats, we are going to be giving it an Iron Defense and Body Press set. Fighting is super effective against ice. It's also going to be stab here, which is great. So once it comes into battle, it is going to get a defense boost from its Dauntless Shield ability. And from there, you can use Iron Defense to get your defense even higher. Now, once you get to about +5 or so, you can go ahead and start using Body Press, which is going to do stab super effective damage based on its defense stat, which is going to be enormously high. Rounding off the rest of the set, we have Brick Break. If it does have Aurora Veil, we are absolutely going to need this because we're not going to want to have it, you know, reduce damage for 5 turns or whatever. As soon as he goes for it, just go ahead, knock it down, and you're going to be all set. And given the Iron Bundle has mostly special attacking moves, we're rounding the set off with Light Screen. I really don't think we're going to need it, but it doesn't really have a move that's any better than it, and if you feel like you need that extra bit of protection, you have it available. Talking about the actual stats themselves, we are going max HP and max defense. We need the max defense in order to max out our damage, and the max HP is going to give us some longevity. So that's 252 EVs in each, and then with the remaining 4, I put that into special defense. Again, nothing too crazy here, but if you don't have a Zamazenta, I think his good buddy is also a good choice. And of course, we're talking about Zacian. Zacian is another amazing Pokemon who's going to be very good in this raid. Again, once it transforms, it is going to become its crown form, so it will be Fairy and Steel. Again, Steel does resist Ice and will do super effective damage against Iron Bundle, which is great. When we come into battle, the Intrepid Sword is going to trigger, so we are going to get that attack boost. And we're going to pair that with Swords Dance to really max out our attack as high as possible. For our attacking move, we're going to be using Iron Head, which will turn into Behemoth Blade, which is going to do a ton of damage to it. And much like Zamazenta, we also have Brick Break for the same reason. Now, the set is being rounded off here with Misty Terrain. Again, this was more of a circumstance of there not being a great fourth option, but it is important to remember, Iron Bundle can use Electric Terrain to give itself a boost, so that is a very nice way of actually denying that. And on top of that, it has access to a lot of moves that have the potential to freeze, and obviously we don't want that to happen. You can just go ahead and cheer for healing and go ahead and get boosted up, but having a little protection against wasting a turn is actually quite nice. And, may actually also help your teammates if they have a chance of getting frozen. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind. That's, kind of the ace in your hole in your back pocket if you ever need it. Now, onto our stats. We do have an Adamant Nature, and we have a maxed out attack and maxed out HP. Once again, the remaining 4 EVs did go into our special defense just to give us a little more insurance. But honestly, we're probably not going to really need it because we do have so much HP on top of an already really good Pokemon. And another Pokemon I think is going to be really good is the new kid on the block, Iron Crown. It is also a Paradox Pokemon, so if it does go for Electric Terrain, it's going to get a boost from that, which is great. And we're going to be using it with a Calm Mind and Flash Cannon set. So unlike Cobalion, which it's based on, which would be a physical attacker, this one is very much a special attacker. So we're going to be using Calm Mind to boost up our special attack and special defense, and then using Flash Cannon to do damage. Now, one thing to keep in mind, Calm Mind is quite a bit slower than Swords Dance or Nasty Plot because it's only one boost at a time. So you want to make sure that you're not setting up 3 or something and then it's going to reset your stats. You want to really choose to get off a couple boosts before doing some damage, allowing it to reset you and then building it back up. You don't want to get just, swept really quickly and not have done any damage. So it's just kind of a good thing to keep in mind as you're doing damage. For the rest of the 2 moves on the Iron Crown, even though it doesn't have a great physical attack stat, we're still going to give it Brick Break. I think the threat of Aurora Veil is significant enough you do want to have an answer to it. And we also have Metal Sound. Now, this is a move we don't see all that often, but it is a TM now in the Indigo Disc. And what it does is reduce a Pokemon's special defense by 2. So you can actually, once you get all the way up to your +3, +4, +5, +6, you can also go ahead and use that and reduce Iron Bundle special defense down by quite a bit. For its held item, we're going with the leftovers here. You really just want to get some HP back as you're setting up, especially with a Calm Mind user. And for its stats, we are going to go with a maxed out HP and a maxed out special attack and a modest nature. We really just want to do as much damage as possible, especially because we're not going to have as much time to get set up as some of the other Pokemon on this list. Another Pokemon that I think is excellent, to probably the surprise of nobody, is going to be Iron Hands. It's one of the best raid Pokemon, just period. And even though it doesn't resist Ice, I think it's actually okay. We're jumping ahead a little bit here, but you will notice Iron Hands has a colossal HP stat. It has like base 150 something. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Even though it doesn't have that great of special defense, the fact that its HP is so high kind of makes up for that. And given how much damage Iron Hands can do, I think it's okay. For the set itself, we are going to be using a Belly Drum set so we can max out our attack right away on the first turn. And normally I would recommend a Citrus Berry, but here I'm actually going to recommend a Leftovers. The thing is this. You're probably going to get hit so hard right off the bat that the Citrus Berry isn't going to matter that much. So your first turn, you're going to have to Belly Drum, and then your second turn, you're going to have to cheer for healing. Now, that may sound kind of awful, but what's going to happen after that, you're going to be able to combine that Leftover Recovery with your Drain Punches. Now, Drain Punch is not that strong of a move, but it is super effective and stab, and again, will be +6, so you're going to be able to recover a lot of HP every turn. So ideally, as long as you are at a maxed out attack, you are going to be able to go back up to your full HP almost every turn. Just please remember on that second turn, after you Belly Drum, make sure you heal up, because otherwise you're going to get knocked out. Now, the rest of the set is actually all attacking moves, which is a little bit unusual, but we have Brick Break. Obviously, we talked about why. I think it's very important to have that here. But we also have Close Combat. I don't really think you're going to need to use this all that often, but the thing is, if you notice you're running low on time, you're going to want to be Drain Punching most of the time, but if you do realize that clock is ticking down, you're going to want to just throw one Hail Mary, try and do as much damage as you possibly can. That's where Close Combat comes in. It is a base 120 power attack, so even though, you're still going to be all boosted up and have stab and all that good stuff, having one last just giant nuke to throw, hoping to knock it out, is just kind of a nice thing to have access to. Now, close combat does drop your stats when you use it. That's kind of the drawback with it, so please don't go ahead and just start spamming this move. That's not really a good choice for this raid, but if you do need that extra little hit, you do have it available. Now for stats, we did do something a little different here than we normally do. I went max attack and max special defense with a careful nature. Now careful natures do reduce special attack and increase special defense. And the reason I use this set, as we kind of mentioned, its HP is already insane. So I wanted to make sure we're doing as much damage as we can with a maxed out attack. And we really need that extra investment in our special defense. So I decided to put all of our points there instead. I put the remaining 4 into our HP. It's not really that big of a deal. But again, once you have such a high stat, we're already pretty good there, so that's why we kind of need to put it wherever we have some shortcomings. But now let's change gears from a Pokemon we've used tons of times before to one that hasn't seen that much use in raids. And that's going to be Gholdengo. Now I know you guys are going to say in the comments, but I use him all the time in raids. And that is great. He is good for normal raids. However, he really hasn't been situated well for a lot of the 7-star Mightiest Mark raids. But considering that it is a Steel-type Pokemon, it is a pretty well-situated Pokemon here. The held item is going to be a Leftovers, recovering just as much HP as we can. And for the actual set itself, very much like Iron Crown, we are going to be going with a Flash Cannon set here. Gholdengo has a very high special attack stat, and we want to use that to our advantage, and we are going to use Nasty Plot to max it out as high as we can. Rounding off the set now, we do have Metal Sound to reduce Iron Bundle's special defense, and we have Light Screen if we do feel we need that little bit of extra protection. Gholdengo does have very good stats, but unfortunately, it's not great. It can still take quite a lot of damage. Obviously not from ice, but if we do take like a big Hydro Pump, that could be a slight issue, so we just want to kind of give us every tool to survive that we can. Now, you may be asking why I'm not using Make It Rain, and that is a very good point. However, I don't really want to have our special attack getting dropped every time after we use it. Even though Flash Cannon is, I believe, 40 power weaker, once you get to +6, that difference is kind of negligible. I mean, don't get me wrong, Make It Rain definitely does more damage, but we don't want to keep spending all those turns to just keep building up our special attack stat, because over time, the amount of attacks we're going to lose by getting our special attack stat back is going to be far outseated by any difference from using Make It Rain to Flash Cannon. As far as stats here, we're not reinventing the wheel. We have a Modest Nature with max special attack and max HP. I don't think I really need to explain why, and this is a really good option to have if you don't have any of the other Pokemon we've listed so far. Plus, you get to have an attacker that looks like he's made out of string cheese, which is great also. For this raid, I also think Kingambit has a lot of potential. It is Dark and Steel with a very high attack stat, which is going to be fantastic. We're going to be using Swords Dance to make it as strong as possible, much like all the other sets we've seen, and we do have Iron Head for its attack and Brick Break to get rid of Aurora Veil, but I'm finishing things off with Sucker Punch. And this is going to be very similar to Iron Hands. If it does look like you're going to be taken out by the next attack, we are going to be always slower than Iron Bundle here because Kingambit is quite a slow Pokemon. So if it does look like you're going to be KO'd, and maybe like cheering for healing isn't going to make that big of a difference, or if you're low on time, you can go ahead and click this and maybe just get off one last attack, because it will always go before Iron Bundle. For the held item, we're going to be going with Leftovers to recover our HP, and we have Defiant as our ability. If we do get any stat drop through like, Icy Wind, Chilling Water, any of that stuff, you are going to be able to get an attack boost, making us even stronger. And even though we already have Swords Dance, we are going to be saving ourselves turns from having to use Swords Dance over and over again. For the stats themselves, we are using an Adamant Nature with a maxed out attack and maxed out HP. Look, we know why at this point. We're just going to be doing as much damage as possible with having as much HP as we can. And with our remaining 4 EVs, I went ahead and put those into our special defense. But look, if you're still worried about this raid, you're still not convinced that any of these builds are going to work, we do of course have our old Nuclear option, but it is a Pokemon that you're going to have to get only through Pokemon Home. And that, of course, is going to be Arceus, and this time around, it's going to be Arceus Steel. Now, Arceus has 120 across the board, so it is going to be the best well-rounded Pokemon for raids. And thanks to that Steel typing from the Iron Plate it's going to have to hold, it is going to be fairly perfectly typed for this raid. Now, the really cool thing about the Arceus is you can basically run it 2 ways. You can go physical or special, and basically still get the same result. Option A is Swords Dance, Iron Head, Brick Break, and Light Screen. And option B is Calm Mind, Flash Cannon, Acid Spray, and Brick Break. Between the two of them, I do think the physical set is better because you are going to be able to get your attack built up faster with Swords Dance. But the Calm Mind set does still work as well. You are going to get those special defense boosts, and you have Acid Spray to reduce Iron Bundle special defense. So really, between the two of these, whichever one speaks to you more, just go with that one. On the physical set, we do have a maxed out attack and maxed out HP with an Adamant Nature. And for the special attacking set, we have a maxed out special attack with a Modest Nature and maxed out HP. But look, at the end of the day, all these Pokemon are awesome and are definitely going to do very well in this raid. And are definitely going to be better than any random Pokemon you just happen to have laying around. So there you guys go. That is every single Pokemon I can think of that you should bring with you to take down the Iron Bundle 7-star raid. If you guys liked the video, if you found it helpful, or if you found me just entertaining, please go ahead and Giga Impact that like button in the face, and of course consider subscribing to the channel because as we are growing, that kind of stuff really helps us out, and you'll make sure YouTube knows that you guys love our content. So with that being said, guys, I've been Blaine for Bridge 4 Games. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me. I hope each and every one of you have a happy, epic, awesome, and amazing day, and until next time, I'll see you in the next video. See you around. Bye-bye.